So welcome everyone. You're very welcome to this evening's information briefing on the Royal College of Physicians Paediatrics Diploma. So the next start date is at the end of May. And so we're open for applications now. And this whole webinar is just to give you a feel and a sense of the program. The running order for the webinar for this evening will be we're having a brief chat with Negin Rihani, and she is a GP in Limerick, and she will be telling you about her experiences as a current student on the program. And we also have Dr. Michael Barrett. He's a consultant pediatrician in Crumlin Hospital. And we will have Diarmuid. Diarmuid is our head of academic affairs. So he will be running through the curriculum with Michael, and he'll be telling you about pricing, about, I suppose, workload, amount of time you have to dedicate to the program, the module content, just the granularity that you need to make your decision about whether you want to partake on the program. So without any further ado, I'm going to pass you over to Diarmuid to have a chat with Negin.
Brilliant. Thanks a million, Rebecca. So yeah, as Rebecca says, I lead the academic affairs function. So I look after the program in terms of the faculty of tutors and the student experience and everything like that. I could talk about the program all night, as could Michael, but there is absolutely nothing like hearing it from somebody who has been through it. Negin is literally just finished the program. She sat her last exam 10 days ago, if even.
That's last weekend.
Yeah, last weekend she's had her last exam, so she's in the anxious state of waiting for results. But my cat has joined us, but has agreed to come in this evening and have a chat with us. Negin, could you give us a sense as to what made you choose a diploma in paediatrics? Why did you find it researching and go, that sounds like it's of interest to me? And actually, would you just kind of give people a small bit of background as to who you are and where you're from and what your clinical experience is? And I'm going to throw my cat out.
Okay. So thank you very much for having me here today. I started, I suppose, I was interested, always very interested in pediatrics as a GP, but I finished the Limerick GP scheme in 5 years ago, and I started working as a GP. And of course, it's pediatrics before COVID has been the bread and butter of our daily life. Because of COVID, maybe things have changed slightly, as we don't see them as much as we did before, the children, but they're still very much part of our everyday practice. So I knew that that it is something that I wanted to do. I'm also, in my case, I wanted to have another diploma because I wanted to apply for a GMS list. And I knew that that was going to be another plus point to have on my CV. So it was not only, I suppose, that I enjoyed peds and it was something that I always wanted to do, but also for career purposes. And so I suppose, researched a little bit. The program seemed to be very much in line with the availability that I would have had in terms of work, and that I would be able to balance it because I could do the tutorials in the evenings. And then I think I had a chat with somebody about the workload, and I know, Diarmuid, you're going to talk about that later on anyway, but it seemed to fit my schedule and my work-life home balance. And that's
what I was going to ask is, undertaking something like this, and the beauty of this course is it's a 6-month course. The downside is it's a 6-month course, so it's a busy 6 months. How have you found juggling home, family, work, study? Nobody has a social life anymore, so that's not a problem, but how have you found kind of juggling everything?
So I was a little bit worried at the beginning because I didn't know really how it was going to be, but I have to say, and I'm not just saying it, I guess, because you're here, but at the very beginning, I did ask in one of our first tutorials, you know, the presentation one, how should we do it? And I think the best piece of advice that I was given was, so read the materials that are due that week for the tutorial, read them in advance. Yeah. So at every tutorial then, I knew the subject, I knew the content, I was prepared for it. And then that made it so much easier for the reading week before the exam, because it was really a revision. So I didn't have to study again, you know, it was really a revision. And it was, you know, very, very easy. The tutorials, I really enjoyed every single one of them. I think I only, in the 6 months, I only missed one, and it was a very, you know, unforeseen circumstances. I couldn't change. But even the one that I swapped, I knew that there was, or that I couldn't attend, there was a recording of it, so it was perfect. The way I managed is I organized every Sunday morning. I had my study morning, and I told the family, don't bother me. I have a couple of hours to study. And look, that was very doable. And again, the reading week gives you enough time. You don't need to stress over it very much. The exam, I felt the 3 exams very fair, very clinically based. The materials were fantastic, easy to read, very much case orientated. So it wasn't a theoretical thing that you will never see. You could actually relate to the patients that you.
And that's what I was going to ask, is actually how clinically relevant did you find the content in terms of what you're doing day to day, what you're seeing day to day?
Very, very relevant. So the cases that you studied during with the materials, I suppose they're all clinically based. So there is very little, how can I say, just theory and numbers. They're all really very much based on cases of patients that you can relate to. And then during the tutorials, then I suppose our how can I say, coordinator, or how can I call Nuala?
Your tutor,
the tutor, yeah, our tutor. She would have been, she's also a GP, and she brought all her knowledge, her experience, and she presented in cases. She encouraged us to bring our cases, so if we knew any patient with the similar symptoms, we could discuss it. And we also had the discussions of cases as well as part of it. Yeah, so I found it very relevant, and I couldn't, you know, I couldn't say that.
I was gonna say the final thing I was gonna ask you was, if you were somebody, if you were talking to somebody who was considering it, what advice would you have to them about that kind of balance of study and everything else? I mean, I think you seem to have approached it in a really methodical way.
Yes. So I recognized a couple of names in this webinar of people that I know, and then one of them works with me. So they will know I like to be very organized, but I found that if you are organized, it's actually very smooth. The 6 months fly, and they are enjoyable 6 months. So I didn't feel like it was a burden. I didn't feel like it was a chore. I enjoyed studying for the subjects, even the ones, I guess, there are 3 big modules, and at the end of each module, you get a reading week before the exam, and you think, oh my God, there's a lot of content. But once you go through it, you realize, well, I have studied all this every week, so it's not, you know, you kind of you're revising it rather than having to memorize. So there was no memorization. I didn't feel there was nothing that I had to learn by heart, because it was all very practical and case-based. And as I said, the exam was very much case related, so very doable. Yeah, I just feel that if you do it, you have protected time for yourself, and you say to yourself, okay, every whatever, Saturday morning or Saturday evening, whichever way suits you, and you set aside a couple of hours during that, and then another hour to answer the case discussions during the week, and then you dedicate your hour for hour for the tutorial on the Wednesdays. Very much doable, highly recommended.
Brilliant. Look, thank you so much for coming along tonight. I think that's been incredibly useful for anyone to hear it, you know, from the horse's mouth and someone that's been through it. What I'm going to do now, folks, is I'm going to share screen. I'm going to go through a presentation, and it'll be Michael and I just kind of doing a bit of a back and forth at times on it, but just basically going through what the kind of structure and overview of the program is. And I've seen a lot of questions coming in on the chat, and I think so far most of them I'm going to be answering in the presentation. So and then we'll get to anything else that kind of isn't covered. So Nadine, listen, thank you so much for giving up some of your evening tonight. It's been brilliant. And we will chat to you soon.
Thank you.
Okay, so I suppose, right, Rebecca, my screen's on okay?
Yeah, perfect.
Brilliant. One of the first things I suppose to cover off is you're going to see and hear the name iheed in parallel to the Royal College of Physicians of Ireland with this program. And just at the start to kind of set out why that interplay is there between the two. So we're an Irish company. We were founded by a family doctor from Mitchelstown, and we basically work with governments, with healthcare ministries, and with institutions like RCPI, like the University of Warwick, the College of General Practitioners, to run education programs. The only thing we do is postgraduate medical education in an online environment. We are probably bigger in the Middle East than we are in Europe in terms of the scale of things that we've done, but we've got over 400,000 course completions to date on our program. So the partnership with the Royal College of Physicians is very much, they have an incredible depth in paediatrics, and you know they are the postgraduate education and training body in Ireland. Faculty of Paediatrics was established in 1982, and effectively what we've done with this program is to bring together our expertise in online education and their expertise in paediatrics to really bring something that, you know, and I think Nadine's given us a brilliant sense of it, you know, a very kind of compelling offering to people all over the world. And you know, it's this program, you'll be in a reasonably small group, but there's multiple groups running at any time. So, you know, it's a fantastic way for the Royal College to reach people all over the world, and for us to bring a qualification of a really high standard. I suppose one of the questions that we get asked quite a lot is, you know, what do I get out of this qualification, or how does this qualification relate to the DCH in the UK, for example, or the Sydney Diploma in Child Health? You know, there's lots of qualifications in paediatrics at the outset. So if you're going to do something like Michael has done and dedicate your career to paediatrics, after your medical degree, you'll do basic specialist training or core training in the UK, then you'll take exams, then you'll do higher specialist training. And that is generally an 8-year journey. Obviously, what we're doing is bringing a 6-month program to the market. So I suppose we're very clear about what it is, and we're very clear about what it isn't. Michael, do you want to talk through, actually, as a paediatric consultant and as a tutor in the program, what do you see as the kind of the benefit for the people that you've taught on the program? What do you think they're getting out of it?
Thanks, Diarmuid. Well, at this stage, I'm teaching on my second module, 6-month module, and thus far I've taught a global audience, and now I'm teaching a UK Ireland audience. And essentially what we're bringing to people is the tools to work in the front line, engaging in children, with children in primary care. What they have got out of it is really the tools to be able to do a comprehensive and structured approach for probably 99.9% of all clinical presentations in primary care. And then definitive clinical pathways to help them decide, you know, the disposition of this patient. Where do they need to go in order to get the right care that they need? I think what I bring to the table is clinical pearls and situations to really tease out the detail with respect to assessing that child in a comprehensive fashion, and also just better define your thoughts, because a lot of the issue with pediatrics is that there's a level of uncertainty in the trainee or the clinician with respect to the spectrum of what it could be. What is this scenario that presents to me? What am I especially concerned about? What's immediately life-threatening? What's not life-threatening? What's a chronic illness? What's not a chronic illness? And we give them tools in order to be very clear in what they need to find clinically, evaluate from the history, and then give the patient a definitive pathway to better health. So that's really my summation of what they get out of it. And what's been really great from my perspective from teaching those two distinctly different groups is the global audience, the interaction that I had with them, because you know you're not only teaching people who are working in essentially you know, the first world.
Yeah.
You're also teaching people who are working in healthcare systems that have less
resource
to work with, less resource, more poverty, and different disease processes. And that's really, really useful. So anybody in this group who's got an interest in global health as well, this also covers that off extremely, extremely well. It's built to do that, and it is of relevance to everybody who deals with pediatric patients.
You make an absolutely valid point there, Michael, and it's something that I've never actually brought up on one of these webinars before. But when we designed the curriculum with the Royal College, our starting point was obviously the Royal College curriculum, and we then went and looked at what pediatrics looks like in the Middle East, what pediatrics looks like in South Asia, and adapted and amended the curriculum so it would have exactly that global health perspective, that, you know, there are conditions that are seen a lot more frequently in this side of the world and a lot less frequently, and vice versa. And the bit that fascinated me in the program, so someone from the iheed team sits in on each and every tutorial, and we share this around. And I personally, I jump quite a bit just to keep my finger on the pulse as to what's going on in different tutorial groups. And what fascinates me is where you have a group that has people from Australia, Singapore, Malaysia, India, all in the same group. And as you say, you know, the resource setting, the scopes of practice that people have, the standards of care that they're able, it makes for really, really brilliant debate. And I think, you know, that comment that's on the slide here about, you know, the multidisciplinary teams, it's the multidisciplinary and it's getting the international perspective on what this looks like and looking at current evidence through the lens of other practitioners as well. And that debate and that discussion, and you know, tonight's session that we're having with 85 odd people in the room, there's back and forth between myself and Michael or Nadine, but in an ordinary tutorial, it's far more interactive, and it's very much, you know, that sentence there, tutor led. It's led by a tutor, but the discussion that you have with your peers is as important.
Just to complement that, Dermot, and give you a real world example of it that happened with my last group. I mean, I had fantastic trainees from Italy, Canada, South Africa, Australia, Ireland. Like, I mean, it was absolutely fantastic, and I learned a lot.
Yeah.
And just to really emphasize that the evidence-based medicine that's gone into this course, it's not like going back to med school. This is not textbook pediatrics. This is real world pediatrics, and that's bringing you the contemporary guidance. And I learned a lot from it, and this is my job. So I think that I really advocate for the peer-to-peer learning that goes on. I mean, we're all healthcare professionals here. And in that tutorial room, it's a flattened hierarchy. We were shoulder to shoulder going through this, through case-based discussions, just making sure that everyone's understanding is the same and the learning is maximized.
Yeah, yeah, could not agree more. So I suppose there's the journey and then there's the destination. And what you get at the end of it then, it's a diploma in pediatrics from the Royal College. There are not formal postnomials for the qualification. A lot of people are using DipPed just to demonstrate that, you know, they have done this. And I think, you know, if you're looking at two candidates' CVs and one of them has shown the level of interest and commitment to go and get a qualification in pediatrics, you know, clearly that is going to be of benefit to that person. There was a couple of questions about recognition. The Royal College of Physicians, their qualifications are recognised absolutely worldwide. And certainly the other piece then is you get CPD and CME. We take a reasonably conservative view. From the college, it gets 44 hours. Some regulators have standardized hours. So if you're in Qatar, for example, they give 36 hours no matter what postgraduate qualification you do. If you're down the road in the United Arab Emirates, HAD give 96 hours. But I think, you know, it will take care of most people's CPD requirements for the year. Again, we can't stress enough, there's huge career benefit to this. You know, there's career benefit, there's patient care benefit, but obviously a 6-month qualification isn't going to give you a scope of practice change or a specialist status that would take years to go through. You know, it's a question that we get asked usually at least once or twice a night on these things, so it's good to kind of put it out there up front. What we're going to talk to then, Nadine kind of referenced this, is the blocks. So there's 22 weeks of content, and they absolutely fly. You know, the group that she finished with a couple of weeks ago still feel like a new group in my mind. So it goes really, really quickly. It's split into 3 blocks. The first block is 6 weeks, kind of a gentle easing in, and then the second and third blocks are 8 weeks. And the way we structure this is there's discrete topics each week. So we don't kind of do a lump of gastroenterology and a lump of respiratory. There's discrete topics each week, and there's a flow to it. So what I'll go through here is kind of the content that we're covering off. And I suppose, Michael, do you want to talk through kind of what this looks and feels like on a weekly basis for people?
Yeah, sure. I think really what we're trying to do is, in the first instance, is just refresh you on what you've learned in medical school. Being honest with you, a lot of this is quite familiar, and that reminding people, you know, the unique aspects of pediatrics and interacting with parents and pediatrics through their different ages, from neonates right up to adolescence, and giving people, we build and build and build and build. And what you find is that there's a huge amount of integration. So very often what happens is, let's say very early on when I'm teaching the initial weeks, I get lots of questions with respect to, let's say, for instance, otitis media. You get lots of ear infections. How many are you allowed to have per year? When do I have to investigate their immune system? And what's really comprehensive about this course is that is covered later on. And you see that a lot of the point, so we come full circle so that you're able to appreciate pediatric issues from both ends, from, you know, the common presentation to the red flags that you need to know about.
Yeah.
And when you're in that scenario, what you have to do next.
Yeah.
Naturally enough, we teach you a little bit about resuscitation, and resuscitation in itself depends where you're practicing. Some of us work in emergency departments, so, you know, sometimes you're working in a GP practice that's very close to a local one. Sometimes you're 3 hours away from anywhere. What am I going to do? And that's a great case-based discussion when you get to that tutorial very early on. We continually build and build and build, and we get into some really specific stuff, like obviously child protection, and we all know about it, but we also talk a lot about functional disorders in childhood, which is quite prevalent. We go into the nuances of puberty, feeding issues, which is a huge issue for anybody who's dealing with young infants particularly. But what do you do when it's a 3-year-old and a 4-year-old, and what do you need to consider? A lot of these are problem-based scenarios, so it's practical. In other words, when a child comes in with a funny head, what do I do? What do I need to consider? And we really work that out in the tutorial session. I must say that I have seen the background work that's gone into the creation of the e-learning, and it is incredibly impressive.
I was going to say, I'll skip to some of that here, Michael, because you're absolutely right. And we'll come back to kind of block 3, but what underpins this, we've talked an awful lot about the tutorials, but actually what underpins the program is probably some of the best online learning content I've seen. It's phenomenal. In terms of accessibility is obvious. You know, any learning platform is going to be accessible, but I think the level of intuitiveness, the depth of case-based learning that you get into, so it will go through the kind of the background or the pathophysiology of a particular condition, and then you delve, you know, this is an example, and you're going to delve into the depth of 5 cases instantly to start applying it. And I think, yeah, you're absolutely right, Michael. It's underpinned by something that's just exceptionally high quality.
So it's not just, you know, going back and replication of a book. Actually, you and exactly what was said there by Negin at the very beginning was, it's really in your own best interest to sit down for an hour and go through this, and it's only by going through the introduction, which is nice and short, and then going through the case-based discussions, do you get the full learning. And there is so much learning within the case-based discussions, and it's really teased out. The other thing to say is that all of the material, a lot of it uses free online access medical education resources. So if you want to really go into depth about pediatric anemia or lymphadenopathy, we have the reference articles in there, and you can just click straight into it and really get a little bit more learning out of it. We're not going to examine you on those evidence-based articles. What we're examining you on is really your approach to the practical situations that you may meet when you meet a patient.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. You know, that it's the decision making. It's, are you equipped to recognize what's in front of you? and to deal with it appropriately. As you say, what's happening to this patient, where are they going next, it is key. And then the third block then, again, we've got and the 2021 curriculum has been revised since the 2021. So we've brought in genetic disorders, we've brought in diabetes, and something like diabetes, which in pediatrics, it might be managed more in secondary care than primary care, which a lot of our participants are based in. But it's recognizing it and knowing about its ongoing management is key. The red flags that Michael spoke of around, cardiology red flags, like oncology, it's going to be rare, but you're going to need to know how to spot it when it presents. Michael, any other highlights that you want to call out from the third block?
I think the other module, which we introduced it into block 1, was the oncology module. So we created a oncology red flag module. And again, it's just an appreciation of, geez, when do I need to be thinking about cancer? It's something that's always in the back of our minds. It's an especially rare presentation in kids. In primary care, if that is where you're working from, you're going to meet it on a couple of occasions. We get into that straight away. We get into it in week 2. And we've been working with a GP in order to deliver that, who's absolutely fantastic, and has given us some resources to help us help you. So that's really exciting. Being honest with you, when I reflect on the entire module as it looks now, there is nothing missing. Yeah. There is nothing missing. There isn't a gap. It's really comprehensive.
It is really comprehensive, and I think we made a lot of kind of choice in terms of curriculum design and flow and how this all goes together. And I think for somebody who's in general practice, or for somebody who's in the earlier stages of basic training in peds, the other population that we get quite a bit of is actually emergency room doctors. So people that are working in emergency medicine, we get it's probably up to 10% of the participant population now is coming from that perspective. Again,
it's because they're brilliant. That's why, Dermot.
Exactly.
So just for you to know, I'm a general pediatrician, but I'm also a pediatric emergency medicine consultant. So I have an appreciation for primary care presentations just as much as secondary care presentations. So that's what makes this so enjoyable.
Exactly. So that's kind of the content, and it is a really comprehensive overview of pediatrics. There's a couple of areas like neonates or hematology that we don't get into, but I think the overall flow across the 22 weeks, as Michael said, it's going to give you 99.9% of what you're going to see, and critically the red flags that you're going to need to find. In terms of, so again, I think the important thing about an online program is it should be designed from the outset to be online. There's a lot of kind of retrofitting in the year of COVID of here's a face-to-face based program that is now just being put onto the internet, and we see those as two totally different things. So this program has from its inception designed to be an online only program. We start off with an induction week, and that induction week gets you used to the online platform, how to navigate around it, how to find everything, what the program structure will be like, who the academic support people are, who your tutors are. So we spend the first kind of that week we spend making sure that you're really comfortable with everything that you need to do for the next 22 weeks. Then, and I think Nadine spoke really well about this at the beginning, then it's about kind of falling into a rhythm and finding a rhythm that works for you, that works for your practice, and that works for your family as well. So each week, and you've seen the topics, there's a particular topic for each week. the online content is there. You can look at any of the program content from day one, but each week will start with a discussion forum post, and that post will be linked to that week's content. So, the week on diabetes, the discussion forum post will be something about, mother brings a 10-year-old child in, he's losing weight, urinating more and tired, etc. And what's your next investigations? What steps do you follow? And it's very much linked to the content of the week. And then you go through the online content at your own pace, linked to that week. And then towards the middle to the end of the week is where you come together for your tutorial. And that's where, Michael will have his group, and you'll have a really lively discussion. I can't highlight enough, it's not a lecture. We give you the content within the platform. That's where you do the reading, that's where you do the kind of the background and the theory and the patient cases. When it comes to the tutorial is all about peer learning, case-based discussion, and bringing it to life. Michael, what, in terms of what makes for kind of successful candidates, people, participants on the program, what do you make of the tutorial in terms of benefit to learning?
I think it's the icing on the cake. I think it really gives the learner the opportunity to really get into the granular detail of what's relevant. I mean, when you see a list of symptoms or clinical findings with respect to something like lymphadenopathy or of a child's neck, it's really useful for people to discuss and understand from people who assess this every single day, what are the real nuggets, what are the pearls, and implementing them. And also, you'll find that people have very fixed thoughts about what needs to happen in certain scenarios. An example from just the last 2 weeks I've been doing with the Irish group is we've been discussing quite openly febrile seizures, and genuinely people thought that every single febrile seizure needs to be sent to an emergency department, end of story. And it's really good that we're able to say, actually, there is a cohort of these patients that are really safe, that if you don't have these following alarming symptoms, it fits the picture, these patients can be managed in primary care. And you can be confident in that. And it's really nice that we're able to not only give the knowledge, but also empower people to use it. So I think it's the icing on the cake, being honest with you.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it sets the context for everything else. And it's a safe space. It allows for discussion. And I think the bit that I love watching is actually the people get quite close to each other. 22 weeks where you're seeing people, for kind of 6 weeks and then 8 weeks and 8 weeks, you get to know your group really well. They get to know each other really well. It's like, it's a lovely community of learning. I'm going to come back to the assessment in a second, but it is a necessary and important part of getting a qualification from somewhere as prestigious as the Royal College. But what I'm going to go on to, I think we've probably given you a sense of this already, but just actually, what does this look and feel like? So there's hundreds of people in this program every year, but you're in your own group and you get to know that group really well. You get to know your tutor really well. And all of the tutors now are consultant pediatricians. So your tutor takes you through the full program. And that's something we debated a number of times. Should Michael do block 1 and should Charlie do block 2, etc. And actually, following that journey through makes an awful lot of sense, and it's working brilliantly. So there's a very cohesive unit that you become part of. The pace of it is just about right. getting it done in 6 months is very achievable. It's not taking over your life for an insanely long amount of time. It's just long enough that you've got enough comfort time to get through the content, but it's not stretched out. So we think the pacing is really, really good. In terms of commitment, we think it's probably somewhere around the 5 hours a week mark. And, that'll go up slightly if you're revising for the exam. But if I break it down into, you're going to spend an hour or so going through the online content on the platform. So, each one of these topics that you'll do on the platform will take you about an hour to get through during the week. Then you'll spend another probably 40 minutes maybe contributing to the discussion forum. By the time you read it, think about it, maybe read something and then write into it, that's probably about 45 minutes doing that. You'll attend your weekly tutorial for an hour a week, and then you'll do other reading around it if you want to. So, somewhere in the kind of 4, 5, 6 hour bracket, depending on your own commitment to it, is probably about right. So as Nadine said, most of that, the only thing you need to do at a particular point in the week is attend the tutorial, and that's timetabled at suitable times depending on where you are. And then the rest of it, you can just block away a couple of hours on a Sunday morning, on a Monday evening, whatever suits your schedule, and that's your study done. So it shouldn't creep into the rest of your life. You should be able to kind of contain it. I think the level of support as well is phenomenal. Our program manager, Rosie, she's a brilliant advocate for people. She's massively supportive. There's an entire team of people kind of looking after the program in the background to make sure that you succeed on it. So let's get into the assessment then. So this chart here is showing you for each block what the assessment is, and there's 2 pieces of assessment at the end of each block. One is a skills portfolio, and that's effectively, we get you to record a video, and the videos at the end of each block, and it's just, take out your iPhone, record a video of its communication skills. It's looking at how you can communicate with parents. It's looking at how you can relay a diagnosis to a child. So how can you get that clinical information across in a way that a 9-year-old is going to understand it, not be afraid by it, and feel reassured. And then the third one is on giving a difficult diagnosis to parents. So they're staged. We don't ask you to use real patients. What we ask you to do is either just record straight to camera, or to get a colleague or friend or family member to play the role of a parent or a guardian. It's really, I hope what you're getting at this by this stage is it's a very practical, patient-centered program. And part of that the Royal College holds really dearly is the effectiveness of communication that you bring to pediatrics is really, really important. So the first video, it's formative, which means it doesn't count for any kind of end of program marks. It's a practice run. The second 2 count for 10% each. The exam weighting then, so that's the video piece that you do. The exams then are obviously worth the remainder of the marks. The exams are about an hour each. The format is multiple choice questions. There are multiple choice questions which, again, a case scenario. We're not going to ask you about the prevalence rates of childhood cancer or anything like that. We're going to give you the exact same type of cases that you'll see throughout the content, and what do you do if presented with this case? Most of the questions are multiple choice with 5 answers, and you pick the appropriate ones. There are some that are free text answers as well. So you'll write in kind of bullet pointed answers. So the assessment is, it's all linked to the content. As Michael stressed, it's not based on the supplementary reading. It's not based on the journals that we provide in the library. It's really embedded in the types of clinical cases that we've given you in the content and talk to you in your tutorials. And I mean, Michael, you've corrected a whole bunch of the video assessments and seen the exam results. The performance is stunning on this program. I think it's.
Yeah, it is. I think if you're looking at, let's say, the median, you obviously have people that are absolutely stellar, and there are people meeting kids every single day, and have obviously got the skills with respect to age-appropriate language, not using overly medical terms, and really addressing the issues that need to be addressed. The other thing I have to say is that formative assessment that's done in block 1 is a great opportunity to just get it right.
Yeah.
So we have probably set a lot of people on the right course who otherwise may have, misrepresented themselves because they haven't done their assessment, in the best way possible. The other thing to say is these exams, they're specific to the block.
Yeah.
I mean, so your exam in block 2 is not related to the material in block 1, although there may be a bit of interrelated because we do build and build and build, but it's really about the content of block 2, and similarly, the exam at the end of block 3 relates to the content of block 3. So when you're done your block, you've got your exam, you're done.
Yeah, that's a really important point, actually, because some programs will do modules in parallel, and this isn't that style. This is, you do your 6-week or your 8-week block, you're examined on that content, and it is then by and large, apart from where conditions interrelate, out of the way. And certainly even where it does interrelate, the focus of the questions is always going to be on the topic in that block. The pass rates in this, and when we go to the Board of Examiners with the Royal College, the pass rates are exceptionally high. We have had the block 2 exam, the first 2 times we've sat it, has had a 100% pass rate. It's not an easy exam. It's not marked easily. It's simply well mapped to the content. And I think what the Board of Examiners were happy with is we've got really, we've got a high standard of entry. Everybody on the program is a doctor. So, immediately your bar is high. Everybody on the program has chosen to be here, has put their hand in their pocket to pay for it. So you've got a very motivated bunch. You then have a really strong education experience, a really good online platform, amazing tutors, and a fair exam. So, you expect the vast majority of people to get through the exam unscathed. And that's what we see. So actually, I'll skip to this slide, which I wasn't going to quite yet. This is, and this is the statistics behind what Nadine was saying at the start. So we've people from 36 countries on the program, and literally it's everywhere from American Samoa, which is 11 hours west of here, to New Zealand, and everywhere in between. It's phenomenal. The engagement statistic is one that I always liked looking at. How many people are at the tutorials, how many people are partaking in the discussions each week, how many people are using the online platform. And again, the beauty of an online program, we've got whole dashboards of data available to us, which lets us spot if people are in difficulty or if they need any assistance. It also shows, you can get through the program without doing absolutely everything. And, everyone has busy clinical lives. Everyone's got people they live with. You're not going to make it to every single thing. But the program design, this statistic says to me, works, that most people can make the vast majority of the program most of the time. The feedback is overwhelmingly positive. We look at the survey results, and it's something we're so proud of. The strength of feedback that comes off this program is leagues above any other program that we have done. And, you know, a large part of that is down to Michael and the other tutors, and just the genuine concern they have about how their group is doing and the interaction they have. It's phenomenal. And the pass rates then, you know, 98%. So we've put hundreds upon hundreds of people through the program in the last 18 months, and 98% out the far side. So, you know, it's a challenging program. It's a busy program, but it's one that if you take on and if you engage with it, you know, you will get out the far side absolutely no problem.
Can I just come in on that, Diarmaid, if that's okay?
Yeah, of course.
Just so that people know, I mean, if you do have a hectic work schedule, which, you know, if you're doing shift work, for instance, the other thing to say is all the tutorial groups are recorded. If English isn't necessarily your first language or something you're comfortable with, a lot of they are all transcribed, which you can utilize as well, which I think is absolutely fantastic. And I do have engagement with individual students, you know, with respect to questions and so on. So through the discussion forum, so that is available as well. So it is something that even though there is an intensity to it, it can work around a busy work life.
Yeah, I absolutely subscribe to that, Michael. I think, you know, and we wouldn't see the pass rates or the feedback that we do if people weren't able to manage this around their work life. I think that's absolutely right. And, you know, the recordings being there, the piece on the recordings that amazes me is when you get the recording from tonight, if you want to find out when I was talking about the exam, you just type the word exam into a search box on the transcript and it brings you to that point in the video. And, you know, that's great for tonight, but if you want to find out what was Michael talking about when we discussed hypernatremia last week, you can find that just as easily. You know, the technology, what it can do nowadays, even versus 5 years ago, is absolutely phenomenal. I'm getting really conscious on time. So I'll just, the two things to say, because again, assessment questions get asked a lot on these calls. So you've 2 attempts at each assessment. So you've a main attempt and you've a repeat attempt. Obviously, with the pass rates that we've discussed, it's a very small amount of people that end up repeating. The support network that Michael talked about is absolutely huge. So, you know, our program leader, Charlie Shepherd, he's a very recently retired consultant pediatrician in Northern Ireland. He is involved in an incredible amount of detail in how the program is run and the quality of it and the supports offered to learners. The tutors, they're just a fantastic bunch. It's, you know, consultant pediatricians that are teaching in this program they're really, really just, they're so knowledgeable, and they have the kind of the pedagogical skills to convert that knowledge into really good learning experiences. The program management team, you'll meet them every single week on your tutorials. There's always opportunities to raise any questions or queries or issues that you have. And then the last one, there's a technical support team that are literally never utilized. The software just works, the technology just works. And I think, you know, again, we've got people on the program that are in their 70s. You know, it's, the technology shouldn't be something that someone goes, I've never studied online before, what will this be like? It all just works. So I'm going to skip then to fees and eligibility and things like that. So it's only open to medical doctors, and that, you know, that's a very important standard setting piece that allows us to pitch the program in a particular way. As I said, the program is a mix of a lot of family medicine doctors, a lot of people that are in family medicine training, but also people that are at the, you know, or 1 or 2 of PEDS training come onto the program. A lot of emergency room people come onto the program, and then there's smatterings of lots of others, but the base is a medical qualification. That can be, you know, obviously that's, and I saw this in chat a long time ago, you know, that can be your MD, your MBBS, your MBCHB, whatever it is. We don't ask you to do an IELTS or a Cambridge English test, but through the application process, we do make sure that your English language proficiency is okay. You won't be writing essays on this, but it is really important that you're able to comprehend the content and that you're able to participate in the weekly discussions. What we'll ask you for then is your university certificate, identification, and a personal statement as to why you want to come onto the program. The fee is set at £2,500. Again, the Royal College wanted this to be accessible, affordable. You can pay it. Everyone pays a €500 deposit to book their slot on the program, and we continue to be stunned and delighted. This program is oversubscribed every single time we run it. So if you do want one of those slots, my advice is to book it as soon as you can. You then pay the remainder, either 2 payments of €1,000 or 4 payments of €500. And again, I saw this come up somewhere, but yeah, there aren't scholarships available. The Royal College set the fee to make it accessible to most people, and it's a flat fee. So that is, I'm gonna stop fairly soon and get into questions, but effectively, I hope that's given you a really good overview of the program. It's 22 weeks. There's study breaks, so you start the program with the induction week at the end of May, and you finish the program. We break just before Christmas and New Year, and you have your final exam on the 7th and 8th of January. So it's a very defined commitment that you're signing up to. As Michael said, it's covering the whole gambit of acute care, of common presentations, of screening, disability, development, growth, and really the bread and butter of what you're going to see in paediatrics. We've given you a tiny flavor of the online experience tonight. It's really hard in a scenario like this to display just how strong it is, but it's an exceptional online experience. Obviously, the Royal College of Physicians, 1654, they've been around since. It's a diploma from one of the most prestigious medical institutions globally. The recognition is there globally. CME or CPD, depending on your jurisdiction, is there. And yeah, it fills really, really fast. And we have a set amount of groups that we will take on in every intake. We won't just keep expanding it and filling it. So it will fill, and it will fill pretty quickly. So the application, you apply online. Rebecca will kind of walk you through that process now. I'm going to stop screen sharing and let's get into questions and summing up.
We've answered most of the questions, but sometimes I like to ask the questions that have come up a few times just to give reassurance. There's always a few questions about how does the RCPI diploma compare to the DCH, the diploma in child health in the UK.
Yeah.
And we have answered it, but I think it'd be nice. There's a few that are asking about recognition in the United Kingdom. I did tell them in the chat, we have between 15 and 20 UK clinicians on the program for every cohort. So it is very popular over there.
And you
might be able to lend a little bit more.
Yeah, sure. So I suppose the primary difference with the DCH is that this program has an education element to it, that it's not just the exam. So the DCH, you do self-preparation and then you sit the exam. And don't get me wrong, the DCH is excellent. I think the difference and benefit of this program is the learning experience. It is as much about the learning experience as the piece of parchment. Yes, be able to say to your patients and to your colleagues and to your registration body that I have a diploma in paediatrics or child health is fantastic, but actually the value is the experience that you go through over the 6 months to get there. I think that's probably the biggest difference. Recognition in the UK, you'll get the same CPD recognition as you would anywhere else. I think, and this goes back to the very first point that we made about recognition. It's really important that the DCH, the the Sydney Diploma, our Diploma, none of them make you a specialist in paediatrics. And in 6 months, you shouldn't expect anything to make you a specialist in paediatrics. So it is hugely recognized. What it gives you recognition of is a confidence and competence in dealing with pediatric patients. And obviously the Royal College is recognized everywhere.
I think I might ask Rachel's question out as well, because she's just asking, is there a limit to the amount of tutorials she can miss? Because she's obviously in training at the moment, GP training, and she's working shifts.
No, in fairness, there's not. And in every group, there's always one or two people that watch more of the recordings online than they make it live. And my feeling on this, the program needs to be accessible to anybody who wants to take it. You don't get the same benefit from watching it back after the fact. You don't get to participate. You don't get to ask questions. And so the environment is never quite the same, but nor at the same time will we'll certainly be looking at who's on the tutorials every week. And if we think someone is in difficulty, we'll see if we can support them, but it doesn't affect your end of block grades at all. The only thing that counts for the award is the two assessments, the video and the exam.
I would say, though, that there usually is a direct correlation between interaction and attendance tutorials and your final grades. And people get a lot more out of it if you can converse in that collegiate environment where you get to know your fellow colleagues.
The reason that we have the discussion forum and the reason that we have the tutorials is, they kind of bookend each week, but it's to make you feel that you're on this journey with a group of peers, that you're having a really enjoyable experience with colleagues from different countries and your own, and that you're able to debate and discuss, and that you're not on a lonely education journey on your own. And I think that's really important. I think, the psychological motivation of being part of a team is huge. And I think that's what we try to create. And so attending the tutorials, I think, as Michael said, it's the icing on the cake. It brings the whole thing together.
And I think it just leads to attrition rates as well. I think if it's that traditional distance learning where there's no interaction, it's very hard to stay motivated, as Dermot said. So it's the ideal way to make you feel part of a community. And it really does, the attrition rates are very low as a result.
I see someone asking there, are there recordings? Yes, absolutely everything is recorded. The entire program is recorded, available to you. The recordings for the tutorials are generally available the next morning after they take place. So, everything is available. We hugely advocate being there in real time if you can, but it's all there.
And just if there was a case where you were working every single night on shifts, we do have the other global groups happening in the Gulf.
I was going to say,
Australia and Malaysia. So
the beauty of
times.
the beauty of this, if a Wednesday evening you cannot make, there will be one on a Thursday evening. There will be one on a Friday morning. There's a lot of options around the particular timing. In Europe, we have them on Wednesday and Thursday evenings, and that seems to suit the majority of people. For people that are based in the Middle East, they tend to be Fridays, either before or after prayer time. In Asia Pacific, it's we deliver them at kind of lunchtime or late morning our time here on a Thursday, which is evening time if you're in Malaysia or Sydney or wherever. So we're bound to find something that suits in terms of enabling you to get to the tutorials. Right, what else is coming in?
The pass rate, Dermot, that was asked a few times.
What's that, sorry?
The pass rate.
Oh God, the pass rate is above 90%. Every single exam has been above 90%. The same with the videos. The average marks in the exams tend to be in the kind of mid 60s. So, people are passing, and they're passing very, very well.
What is actually
the passing requirement?
Yeah.
Sorry, the passing requirement, 50%.
50%.
50%, yeah. It's Sorry.
No, that's fine. I mean,
Different answer. Yeah, so it's 50% is the pass-through requirement. If you have to repeat something, it's capped at that 50%. So they don't want you repeating just to get a better grade. But yeah, to get across the line, it's 50% independently. You have to pass each of the videos and each of the exams separately. There's no compensation between them.
Any negative marks for MCQs?
No, there's not negative marking for MCQs. There's one small exception to that, Amy. If you have a question where let's say there's 5 options and 2 of those options are correct, if you select all 5 options, that will get you 0 marks. But other than that, there's no negative marking if you put in a wrong one.
Brilliant. And Vince, I think we just answered your question there about failing an exam. You can repeat, but it's capped.
Yeah. So you get a main attempt and you get a repeat attempt. The first time pass rates they're in the 90s. So it's I think this goes back to what Nadine said right at the start. If you go along each week and do a couple of hours each week, you're a qualified doctor. There's no reason that you won't get through this program first time. Michael, any final thoughts before we wrap for the evening?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the materials are so well constructed that actually it isn't too much of a slog. It is interesting. It's delivered not only as reading, but it's also delivered with illustration. It's also delivered with oral content. You get to see clinical interactions happening in front of you. You get to interact with it. So, it's not a matter of getting 2 matchsticks and sticking them on your eyes. It is actually rather easy to consume the content. So I think once you commit and when you commit, and we will be here for the next 6 months and the next 6 months and the next 6 months, you'll find it really engaging. And I look forward to meeting you in the future.
Brilliant. Thanks a million, Michael.
Thank you so much, Michael. Just to finish off, everyone, you will be receiving an email tomorrow, and that will have the recording of the session tonight, and it'll also have an apply now and a pay now button if you want to go ahead and pay your deposit. As Dermot said, we are almost 50% full for Europe already. It feels quite fast, but our education advisors will be reaching out to you by phone as well over the coming days, just to see if you have any other questions and anything else you want to ask. So they will be calling you to see if they can help you in any way. So just if you see an unknown number coming through, it will be from the education advisors. So that's it. And there is an urgency if you want the May intake, because it does fill very quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, well, look, thank you so much to everyone for coming along, especially Michael and Nadine. Your contributions were absolutely brilliant. And as Michael said, we look forward to welcoming hopefully lots of you onto the program.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Michael. Brilliant. Take care, everyone.
Take care, guys.